forget to vote. Don't forget to vote. Don't forget to vote. Don't forget to vote. Tuesday. All right. Gun deaths, gun-related deaths, are now the third leading cause of death for American children. We are here today to say enough is enough. 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 I am honored to introduce Libby Miller, a junior, I believe, at Logan High School.
Hi everybody, thank you for coming. It just makes me really happy to see so many people have come to support this issue. 17 children and staff members at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School won't go home tonight. They will never again see their families. These prospective kids will no longer be able to go to college or travel the world or fulfill any dreams that they once had in mind. In an instance, their futures were gone. As of today, there have been over 200 school shootings nationwide since the mass shooting at Columbine High School on April 20th of 1999. And these shootings haven't been limited to schools. The Orlando nightclub shooting claimed the lives of 49 people and injured another 58. And the Las Vegas shooting of last year had a death toll of 58 people and another 851 injured. These are only a couple of the countless other fatal mass shootings that have plagued our country in the past decades. Why should these deaths be overlooked and blamed simply on mental illnesses? Stricter gun laws would have prevented the deaths of the hundreds now dead. On April 28, 1996, Australia suffered the loss of 35 lives due to a mass shooting at a seaside resort. In just 12 days, their government changed the policy of gun control laws to make them stricter, requiring both individual registration of a weapon and a genuine reason for needing one in the first place. Over 90% of nationwide public support was present, and the result? It has been 22 years, and not one mass shooting has been accounted for in the country of Australia. Earlier this week, a 44-year-old man with a severe mental illness attacked a high school in the Netherlands. Due to the Netherlands' strict gun control laws, he didn't have access to guns. He instead brought knives, but was scared away almost immediately when students began throwing backpacks at him. There were no guns available to him, which meant no shooting, and most importantly, no death. I remember hearing about the Aurora shooting that took place in a movie theater in 2012 in Denver, Colorado. The shooter set off tear bombs and opened fire on people in attendance there. 12 were killed. The fear that I felt going to the movies following the shooting was immense. I remember frequently looking around during a movie simply to see if I could find a place to hide in case a shooter decided to show. I was 11. I was not old enough to have the burden of fearing for my own life on a simple daily outing. I still don't think a 16-year-old like myself should have the responsibility to be aware of potential danger due to gun violence, especially in school. But here we are. In 1994, President Bill Clinton banned assault weapons. As a result, mass shootings deaths dropped 43%. However, this ban was allowed to expire in 2004. The statistic of these deaths shot up 239%. People say that guns aren't the problem and simply people are, but this statistic only shows the flaw in this statement. Think of it this way. You take away a stick, or you see a child hitting another child with a stick. You don't blame the stick, you blame the child for using it, but you take the stick away anyways to ensure that nobody is further harmed. The same can be said for guns. By enforcing stricter laws that can prohibit those who shouldn't have them, this percentage can drop once again. Earlier this week, a 22-year-old black man was shot dead in the backyard of his home in California. A police officer claimed that the man had a gun, but later discovered that it was really just his phone and not a weapon. Many incidents of teachers accidentally shooting off guns in school have been reported in the last month following the Parkland shooting, only proving that arming teachers would be just as dangerous as doing nothing at all. Why give guns to teachers, many who don't even want them, while a number of already trained police officers can't always think logically or responsibly when handling one? Please, pass stronger gun control laws. Please keep guns out of school. We're the future of this country, and we want to live to see it. Thank you.
We're now going to hear from Cheryl Hancock, who is the president of the Holmen School Board.
Thank you. With the words of these young people, we are in good stead for the future. Aren't they wonderful? I'm so proud of being from Holmen and proud that not only our high school students walked out, but also our middle school students walked out as well on the 14th. And they're young people today on the way in. I heard an 11-year-old in Washington, D.C. make a terrific speech. You'll have to go back and listen. I was first elected to the school board in Holmen right before Columbine, and every day that school's in session, myself and my fellow colleagues are aware that we're responsible for the safety of 3,000 students who walk through their doors. As our nation experienced school shootings, I became sickened by all the thoughts and prayers that we were seeing. We as a district took action and passed a $2.8 million referendum for school safety, some of the initiatives that are being suggested, but there is more to do. We have done our small part. Now it is time to demand Congress act and pass common sense gun laws. I don't know about you, but this time it feels different. This time a group of intelligent and brave young people have decided enough is enough, and they're committed to hold our elected officials accountable, and I'm here today to do the same and to stand with them. It is shocking to me that people are more outraged about the possibility that they might lose the right to own any sort of gun that they want to. More outraged by that than the fact that 17 people lost their lives in 6 minutes in a school. If you would allow me to use one of my new young heroes' battle cry, Marjorie Stoneman Douglas student Emma Gonzalez, I call BS. I cannot believe that people think automobiles should be more regulated than guns. I call BS. I am fed up that our elected officials are willing to allow the gun lobby to put their Second Amendment right before the rights of our young people to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. I call BS. I am livid that people are buying into the suggestion by the NRA that the way to protect our students is to arm our teachers. I call BS. Who has the most to gain by an increased proliferation of guns? The NRA, its members, and gun manufacturers. Just follow the money. I call BS. If a gunman can walk onto an army base like Fort Hood with highly trained personnel and still kill 13 people, do you really believe that arming 20% of teachers is going to stop the next killer with an AR-15? I call BS. I had a very poignant conversation with a teacher in our district, and she pleaded with me not to arm them. She said she could not live with herself if she had to kill one of her current or former students. And on the other side, she couldn't live with herself if she failed to do so and they died instead. She said she would leave education first. As was mentioned, we're aware that even the most trained and experienced law enforcement might not be prepared to step in when faced such a situation. Yet we're asking our teachers who are trained to nurture and support to do this. Today's teachers are called upon to do so much. They have become nurses, referees, fundraisers, dietitians, the list goes on, and we just need to let them teach. If we are to arm teachers, we need to arm them with more school counselors, more time to teach rather than to test, arm them with smaller class sizes so they can build better relationships, or arm them with adequate resources to meet the needs of troubled students they serve. But to suggest that we make our school a militarized zone and arm teachers with adequate firepower to stand up to an AR-15, I call BS. Thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl. I'm honored to introduce Tara Johnson, La Crosse County Board Chair.
Good afternoon, La Crosse County. Thank you all very much for being here. I have to tell you that the other day I had breakfast with my friends Joan and Pam, and we get together occasionally and we find ourselves talking politics, and we often, especially in recent months, find ourselves increasingly kind of down and maybe rolling our eyeballs a little more and shrugging our shoulders and talking about this post on Facebook or that post on Facebook, and we kind of get into this cycle of there's nothing I can do, right? Like, I'm fed up, I'm over, there's just too much going on and I can't do anything about it. Is this at all familiar to any of you? Maybe not at the breakfast table with Joan and Pam, but maybe in your lunchroom or at the water cooler or wherever you hang out with people. And what I want to tell you today, and the reason that I am here at this microphone, is to ask all of us to make a commitment to say to ourselves that we have, in fact, had enough, and we will take it no more. Can you say that with me? We have had enough, and we will take it no more. I'm going to need you in a minute, so remember those words. Enough and no more, okay? So right now in our county, as well as across the nation, we are all paying too high a price for guns in our society. Emotional, social, and quite frankly, financial costs. In 2016, there were 1,394 child protective referrals made to La Crosse County Human Services. And there were 1,945 children in those cases who were investigated for reports of abuse or neglect. And what we know from county social workers, many of whom are here today, is that an increasing number of those cases involve guns and the threat of violence from guns. And our young people right here in La Crosse County are being exposed to the threat of guns being used in cases of domestic violence and child abuse and neglect. And our county juvenile justice workers are saying that youth increasingly have access to guns as part of their daily lives. And we are here to say that we have had enough and we want no more. Add to that scenario this whole intersection of substance abuse and drugs and opioids, and we know this story well in this community, right? We have a great task force in this community working on trying to stem the tide of opioid and prescription drug use. But we know that when abuse of substances intersects with guns, the results are never good. And in particular, in the case of domestic violence, this is a very, very dangerous situation for women. So the cost for us in our community is that when a gun is present in a domestic violence scenario, women are 5 times more likely to die. That is the cost of guns in our community, and we have had enough, and we will take no more. The cost is also too high when it comes to suicide in our community. What we all pay for having access and availability of guns for people who are struggling with mental health issues, for people who are hopeless and desperate and don't know what else to do is too high of a price. We know that nationally, 62% of firearm deaths in the United States are suicides. 62%. Between 2012 and 2016, that accounted for 108,183 suicides by firearm. The La Crosse County Medical Examiner's Office reported that in the years 2015, 16, and 17, a total of 51 suicides were reported, and of those, 23 used firearms. Already in 2018, there have been 3 suicides by gun in our county, and we are saying that is too high a price to pay. We have had enough, and we will take it no more. All of you being here today are taking an important first step to make changes in this, and showing up, being together today in these lovely, warm, balmy conditions. That's the first step that we're all taking, right? But as we talked about at breakfast, Joan and Pam and I a couple mornings ago, we know that we need to do more. You all know that you need to do more as well, right? So yes, you can complain a little bit, and you can shrug your shoulders and roll your eyeballs and hit the send button on Facebook if that makes you feel better. That's great. Those are all good things to do, but there is more work to be done, and what we do cannot end here today. We have to leave here today with a plan of action to take legislative action, and we've heard about voting. I'll get to that in a minute, but call your representatives, call your legislators. Make sure that they know how you feel. They're not all here today, although the good ones are. I'm just pointing that out. Right? But make sure that you are making those phone calls and sending those texts and writing those letters and writing letters to the editor, not just today, but every day forward until that change happens. If you live in the city of La Crosse, on April 3rd, there's a referendum question on your ballot. Make sure that you are voting yes to get the money out of politics, because you know damn good and well who benefits the most. Folks like the NRA are the ones who want money to stay in politics, right? We have had enough, and we will take no more. So beyond the city of La Crosse residents, everybody get out and vote on April 3rd. Vote for Rebecca Dallett for Supreme Court. Vote for your county board supervisors. We have many progressive county board supervisors. Make sure you are voting for them on Alaska Common Council races or on the ballot. And make sure that you are working for the candidates that you believe in, that you are contributing to their campaigns, that you are helping them get elected, and make sure that we are electing representatives who pass common sense gun safety laws from this day forward.
If you've been signing these petitions, and I know you have, and they are full, place them next to that thing right there. That's where they'll go. If this is your scarf, it'll also be next to that thing. They say the Second Amendment is supposed to protect us from tyranny, but what's more tyrannical than a group of 5 million people holding over 300 million people captive in this country? Does the NRA speak for you? No! I'm happy to bring up somebody who I get to say does speak for me, the Bishop of the La Crosse Area Synod, and my boss, Bishop Jim Arends.
I am ready for the letters, the calls, the emails, the text messages. I know what I'm going to hear. Bishop, haven't you heard of the separation of church and state? Bishop, stay in the pulpit, stay out of the park. Bishop, you need to be serving Jesus. My responses are ready. I serve Jesus as a bishop in a church body that has chosen to be a public church, to speak for those in need, to protect the innocent. Today I speak for the innocents who are no longer safe in our schools. I'm a member of a conference of bishops. We have condemned gun violence for the evil that it is. Along with 65 other bishops, we have confessed that we have waited too long to publicly respond to all the young voices who cry for safety in our schools. Latino voices, African American voices, white voices, the voices of the children of the First Nations of our land. We bishops have promised to support all the students who are tired of watching our children die in their schools. All the students who march for their lives. All the students who cry out for action to end gun violence in our country. I know there are folks ready to dismiss me when I use inaccurate firearm terms because I'll look stupid. But the .410 shotgun I used to shoot rough grouse did not prepare me for the language of AR-15s. My .30-06 deer rifle didn't prepare me for assault rifles created for only one purpose: killing many, many people in a short amount of time. My handgun practice qualifying me to work as a security guard didn't prepare me for rapid-fire armaments brought into our schools to kill. For this moment, I'm going to use one term: assault rifles. No civilian needs to own an assault rifle. And our students are meant to live. There are politicians who say what we really need is better mental health care. They're right, and I hope they're willing to pay for it. But I have worked in adolescent psychiatric care. I know things do not change quickly. And while we're working for it, can we at least get rid of the guns? No civilian needs to own an assault rifle, and our students are meant to live. There are well-meaning people who say what we really need is to walk up and not walk out. We need to create more welcome for all students by all students. They are right. But I've spent my professional life trying to create community. It does not happen quickly. It is a difficult thing, and while we are working for community, no civilian needs to own an assault rifle. And our students are meant to live. There are those who say, keep the students in school. Keep them off the speakers' platforms. What do they know? They're only kids. Those who try to silence the youth are wrong. Our young people are the vulnerable ones. They have watched others their age die from senseless violence. They have a message we need to hear, and they need to live. And no civilian needs an assault rifle. As a Christian pastor, I serve one who we call the Lord of Life and the Prince of Peace. In the names of the God I serve, I call out for change. I call for legislation that protects our students. I beg for legislation that rids our gun cabinets of assault rifles. For legislation that has us register our firearms. For registration that makes access to gun ownership rigorous enough to match the responsibility of possessing a gun. No civilian needs to own an assault rifle. Our students are meant to live. Finally, as a pastor, I pray for mutual responsibility, for community, for peace, and for life, because our students are meant to live. Thank you.
All right. I am honored to introduce Wisconsin's 95th Assembly District Representative, Jill Billings, someone you should go out and vote for in November.
How are y'all doing out there?
My thanks go out to the organizers of this March for Our Lives event, and thanks to all of you for stepping up, for being part of this powerful movement. Thank you. It is important to make our voices heard here today, but also in the ballot box. An important action item for everyone here is to vote. Vote and vote. Last week in the Wisconsin State Assembly, we debated and voted on a package of Republican bills that were sadly anemic. And the problem is that although the bills address some school safety elements, and many that have already been accomplished in our school system here years ago, the bills don't address gun safety. You see, our schools and our students have done their part. They practice drills where students, even young students, pretend to hide from a dangerous stranger, huddling quietly behind a teacher's desk or some other hiding spot in the classroom while an adult walks down the hallway and jiggles the doorknobs to check to make sure they're locked. How terrible for our kids that this is where we're at now. Our teachers, along with teaching math, writing, social and emotional skills, must also practice drills on how to flee or fight an intruder. They practice by attacking a law officer who's covered in protective gear. They do this with the safety of our kids in mind. I'm guessing that when they were in college and in training to be a teacher, they didn't think this is where we would be at. Schools have installed cameras and entrances have been locked, so visitors are buzzed through the office. Our students and our schools have done their part. It's past time for us to do our part. It is past time for elected officials to be bold, to have backbone, and to respond to school safety and gun safety in a common sense way that people are expecting. To stand up to self-interested groups like the NRA. Democrats created our plan by first sitting down with school officials, with community leaders, with students and experts in gun safety to come up with some immediate solutions that could be implemented now. Number one, we have to make it harder for dangerous individuals to get access to firearms. That includes universal background checks, closing loopholes for gun shows and online purchases. That includes a 48-hour waiting period that we know in the past has helped in cases of domestic violence, when someone wants to hurt themselves or others, that time of cooling off. We support a lethal violence protection order, which would allow a family member or law enforcement officers to petition the court, a judge, to temporarily remove firearms from a person who is at risk of harming themselves or others. We support bans on bump stocks. This is the ban that bans the devices that are used to convert firearms to automatic weapons. I have brothers who hunt, and they have said they don't need bump stocks in the field. This includes several provisions to enhance school safety measures, and we support access to behavioral health services. Communities and schools around the state continue to struggle to have the resources to address mental and behavioral health issues. Although the link between mental illness and gun violence is tenuous. Let me repeat that. The link is tenuous. We support calls for increased funding for school-based behavioral health services because of the tremendous need. The need we've heard from teachers and school administrators. We need to make a more significant investment to address that crisis too. The violence that we see every day in our country is not inevitable. No other industrialized nation experiences the epidemic of mass shootings and daily gun violence. We must do more to help our communities, our schools, and keep our children safe. Democrats have common sense, comprehensive, immediate solutions that should be implemented. The safety of our people and our children depend on it. Thank you for being here.
You warm out there? Maybe. Take a minute, look around you, look at the wonderful people next to you. You're still here, you're wonderful, you're beautiful. Congratulate each other, encourage each other to stick it out till the end. It's a bit chilly. I'm happy to bring up now Sister Laura Nettles. She's with the Franciscan Sisters of Perpetual Adoration. She's a professor at Viterbo.
So first, let me tell you, on behalf of the Franciscan Sisters of Perpetual Adoration, we hear you, we are praying for you, and we are standing with you. Just so you know, when we were marching over here, we had sisters in that march, but some of our sisters are elderly and couldn't make it. They chose to stand out in front of the convent, holding up their signs and showing the world we care. In the Gospel of Luke, there's a story where a man comes up to Jesus and says to Jesus, "What must I do to live a good life?" And Jesus says, well, that's pretty easy. 2 things, love God and love your neighbor. And the man wants to challenge Jesus, says, who is my neighbor? And what precedes is a long story where it comes to the end, and Jesus says, everyone. Everyone in need, everyone that exists are brothers and sisters. Everyone here are our brothers and sisters. As we heard earlier, Cain and Abel reminds us that we are brothers and sisters, and what happens to us happens to everyone. What happens to you happens to me because we are connected. What happened in Florida happened to our brothers and sisters. What happened in Columbine happened to our brothers and sisters. What's happening to our African American brothers and sisters affects us. All of these things hurt us because we are brothers and sisters. We are so fortunate. We are so blessed to have our young brothers and sisters rising up and saying, enough is enough. We want to live. We need to listen to those brothers and sisters. We need to follow their example. We need to go and tell the politicians. We need to remind the NRA that guns are not our brothers and sisters. People are. We need to support one another. And I want to say something just to the students. I want you to know I have watched you and I have listened to you. You inspire me. You amaze me. You are my heroes. You are amazing. Keep the faith. It's not always going to be easy, but you will show us the way to be brother and sister to one another. Keep the faith. God bless.